Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Senate President Tito Soto confirms discussion on a possible term-sharing deal with Senator Loren Legarda after failed moves to unseat him.
President Bongbong Marcos welcomes the House Justice Panel's dismissal of the impeachment complaints against him.
Cavite 4th District Representative Kiko Barzaga has been suspended again for another 60 days.
Several areas are now under signal number 2 due to Tropical Storm Basha.
First in the news, the impeachment complaints against President Bongbong Marcos have been thrown out at the committee level, drawing mixed reactions from lawmakers and the palace. Here's the report.
The House Committee on Justice has dismissed both impeachment complaints filed against President Bongbong Marcos, ruling them insufficient in substance. The first complaint, filed by lawyer Andre De Jesus, was rejected after 42 committee members voted to declare it insufficient, with 1 opposed and 3 abstaining.
The impeachment complaint of De Jesus, insufficient in substance.
The committee also junked the second complaint filed by the Group Bayan and endorsed by the Makabayan Bloc. A motion by Caloocan City Representative Egay Erice to declare the complaint sufficient failed to gain support, with only 7 members supporting it and 39 opposed.
The chair declares the Masa et al. Impeachment complaint insufficient in substance.
The Makabayan Bloc expressed disappointment over the outcome, claiming the process was rushed and that some congressmen acted as the president's lawyer.
Napakahusay na pagpaliwanag po ng ibang mga kasamahan natin, katulad ni Congressman Erice, ni Congresswoman Laila de Lima, Congressman Chel Jokno. Malinaw na sa batayan na yan ay sufficient in substance ang complaint at dapat tumuloy sa susunod na yugto. So malinaw po, mukhang desidido talaga ang komite na patayin na sa yugtong ito pa lamang ang complaint.
Committee leadership defended the process, saying no railroading occurred. They noted the review period was sufficient and emphasized that impeachment cases must rely on personal knowledge or authentic records, standards these filing did not meet.
Hindi naman po pag-aabogado sa presidente, bagkos pagbibigay po ng opinyon ng bawat isa. So hindi mo naman maaalis sa mga abogado na mambabatas na ipaliwanag kung paano tignan yung mga pagtanggap ng ebidensya.
Despite the committee's dismissal, the plenary must still approve the panel's report on Monday, February 9. 1/3 of House members, or 106 votes, would be required to dismiss the impeachment complaints entirely.
I cannot still say it's dead because there's still a proceeding that will happen in the plenary.
Meantime, Palace Press Officer Undersecretary Claire Castro said the President welcomed the committee's decision, stressing that due process was followed and that lawmakers were able to determine the facts.
Natuwa po siya. Ang sabi nga po niya ay nasunod ang proseso at yun naman din po ang gusto ng Pangulo. Masunod ang proseso at makita ang katotohanan.
In an interview with The Big Story, ACT Teacher Party List Representative Antonio Tino said the House Committee on Justice acted prematurely. He stressed that the panel was wrong when it asked for evidence on the grounds of impeachment.
Mali po ang intindi at ang ginawa ng komite rito, no? Ang sinasabi, hindi raw napatunayan ng mga complainant at endorser ang aligasyon na may impeachable offense ang Pangulo. Wala raw ebidensya, hindi sapat ang ebidensya, and so on and so forth.
Representative Benny Abante meanwhile told Sa Totoo Lang that the impeachment of Marcos is as good as dead.
Binasura ng komite, good as dead yan.
Yeah, okay.
So, ibig sabihin,
Maaring the only thing that the plenary can do is we will submit to the plenary for a plenary vote. Ano? Kung mangyari man yung plenary vote na yan, hindi na mananalo yan. Wala na.
But
It's good as dead.
Meanwhile, House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos declined to comment on the junking of impeachment complaints against President Bongbong Marcos, citing his familial relation to the chief executive. Mobile journalist Arles de los Santos has the report.
I am not the right party, or I have no moral authority to be discussing anything to do with the impeachment of the president, given my familiar relation with him. It's best for me not to comment.
That is the response of Ilocos Norte Congressman and presidential son Sandro Marcos when asked to comment on the junking of the impeachment complaints against his father, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. This after the House Committee on Justice decisively junked the two complaints filed on January, citing both are insufficient in substance. Marcos kept a mum, saying he leaves it up to the wisdom of the committee and the other members of the House. With 42 in favor votes and 1 against for the junking of the complaint filed by attorney Andre De Jesus, and 39 in favor and 7 against to junk the second complaint filed by private individuals and progressive groups, triggering the 1-year bar rule for impeachment against Marcos Jr. The presidential son has also responded to the issue regarding allocables, or the funds that the Department of Public Works and Highways provides to congressional districts, where the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, or PCIJ, has called him top pork barrel beneficiary. He also argued that the baseline balance manage, or BBM parametric formula is the executive department's initiative, not by any members of the legislative branch.
Bilang isang mambabatas, bilang isang tao na kung ang kanyang trabaho na ipaglaban ang kailangan ng kanyang distrito, my mayors, my constituents, my barangay captains come to me with priority projects all the time.
But Marcos passed the ball to the DPWH when asked if it is just a coincidence that former Speaker Romualdez, his uncle, and the president's cousin is among the top allocable recipients.
Again, you will have to ask the DPWH that.
Marcos was also asked to comment if his bill, pushing for no work, no pay scheme to lawmakers, was meant for anyone, including Senator Bato de la Rosa, who has been missing in action in the Senate, and after Davao 1st District Representative Paulo Duterte was seen present on Wednesday's House plenary session.
Ikaw naman nag-iintriga ka lang? No. I'm not singling anyone out. It hasn't been passed. Gumagana na. No, no comment na lang.
Kapatid Arles de los Santos, we are One News.
Talks of a possible power-sharing deal at the Senate is gaining attention after Senate President Tito Sotto confirmed moves to reshuffle leadership were discussed. Here's the report.
It was Senate President Tito Sotto himself who confirmed that there was once again an attempt to replace him as leader of the Senate. But Sotto said the move was blocked by his colleagues in the majority. Sotto said he was not concerned despite rumors circulating yesterday afternoon that he could be replaced as Senate President. He added that he is ready to take on whatever role his fellow senators may give him.
Wala, nakakatuan lang namin.
Pero may attempt pa talaga, sir, na magpalit ng leadership?
Well, better ask them. Better ask them. Wala akong alam. I can do any work in the Senate. I can be majority leader, minority leader, Senate President, or even a regular senator. I have no problem with that.
The name of Senator Loren Legarda has once again surfaced as a possible replacement for Sotto. Legarda served as presiding officer and took the rostrum when the session resumed after the afternoon break. Earlier, Senator Mig Zubiri even joked about it, addressing Senator Legarda as Madam President.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Madam President, nice to see you on the yes, session resumed already, right, Madam President?
Yes, session is resumed.
Sotto said they were simply having fun. But he also confirmed that there are plans for Legarda to sit as Senate President before the end of the 20th Congress. This was Sotto's response when asked about the reported term sharing arrangement in the Senate presidency. Earlier, Senator Kiko Pangilinan posted a photo with several members of the majority bloc, including Legarda with a caption, "Power Sharing." After the session, the senator even posed for a group photo. According to Senator Zubiri, the Senate majority remains strong and united.
The Senate Committee on Electoral Reforms under the leadership of Senator Risa Ontiveros has begun deliberating on 6 versions of the anti-political dynasty bill. A key sticking point remains the scope of the proposed ban. Even constitutional experts are divided on how far the measure should extend. Meanwhile, some senators from prominent political families have signaled openness to the proposal. They agree that limits should be set on the number of government posts one family can hold simultaneously.
The question is national. I think some people may find it objectionable to include that, because essentially when we say national, you're really talking about senators. So we have to take a good look at that, whether 24 seats in the Senate should be covered by the prohibitions.
The public office is not a family inheritance. It is a public trust. The intent of an anti-political dynasty law is not to single out families, but to strengthen our democracy, leveling the playing field, and ensure that leadership remains open to merit, competence, and genuine service, rather than name or lineage.
Let's get insights on the latest political developments. Joining us now is political scientist Julio Teehankee of De La Salle University. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good morning. Good morning, Diego. Good morning, Angela. Thanks for having me.
All right, so much to talk about, but let's start off muna with, of course, yung impeachment complaint ni PBBM, which was junked at the committee level. Now, ano po ang basa nyo dito? What does this tell you about the current alignment of the two political, well, you have the Duterte faction, you have the PBBM faction. So what does this tell you?
Well, it was expected, no? The fact that the first impeachment case filed against the president was obviously a weak one. It's a common playbook, no? It was already used by past presidents, for example, Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo in the past to inoculate the incumbent, no? So alam naman natin na gano'n ang mangyayari, no? So hindi na obvious. Ang medyo kakaiba dito is hinayaan nila na i-introduce at dineliberate nila sa Justice Committee, no? But it's already a foregone conclusion that they will junk the impeachment charges against the president. Ang dapat tutukan, because of course we know this is all part of the logic of the next electoral cycle in 2028. And this first quarter of this year is very critical in order for us to determine whether the palace, the executive, will be able to regain the political narrative, or it will end up for the remainder of its term as a lame duck presidency.
It's a good thing you mentioned about yung regaining the narrative, no, or the lame duck stage. It's because what was talked about that could resurrect the pagka-lame duck ng president is having a possible front-runner in the presidential race, and talks about the middle ground, the pinks and the yellows were talked about. But if you looked at Laila de Lima, Congressman de Lima's stance yesterday on the second complaint, along with, of course, Congressman Jokno, I don't know what they were playing with. Parang, hindi ko mabasa yun, Prof. Ano tingin nyo doon?
Well, it's really, it's really a tricky, very strategic, sometimes it is a mind game, no? Because obviously, the key to 2028 is if they succeed in impeaching the current frontrunner, who is, of course, the vice president, no? And they failed last year, so now they're going to make a go for it again. So at the same time, we have now 3 distinct political factions, and this is a result of our midterm elections. And as the result of the midterm elections have revealed, the 2 dominant political factions, the Marcos forces, the Marcos loyalists, and the Duterte supporters, are of course the main contenders. Now the swing votes, And this is where the administration is trying to court the support. Itong sinasabi nating liberal progressive forces or the undecided voters also, which constitute more than half of the population. So at this point, medyo lamang ang supporters ni Vice President as shown by the surveys, but at the same time, hindi naman sila totally majority because a large part of the population are still undecided.
That's right.
So ito yung kinokort ngayon ng administration. And of course, this feeds into the current situation in which even the administration, Malacanang, is open to pushing for reform policies. And this gives us a critical window of opportunity, at least for civil society, academics, and those who are interested in pushing for reforms to really go out and make sure that this administration will make true to its promise of implementing these reforms. Isa sa mga reforms na ito ay yung gusto ko sanang talakayin sa inyo, itong anti-political dynasty law.
Well, having said that, before we move forward to another topic, still on the impeachment case, we can almost expect the same result. Do you think that way, Prof? Having said that, because sabi nga nila, it's not yet dead. May pagbobotohan pa, pero wala naman tayong makikitang outcome na different.
Sa plenary.
Sa plenary.
Saan? Doon sa impeachment?
Sa impeachment, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Foregone conclusion na yan. And of course, pwede yung tanong ni Diego regarding bakit ganun ang boto nila Congressman Jokno and Congresswoman De Lima is because, of course, they cannot, they can play the game tactically, but strategically, of course, they cannot go against their own political narrative.
Right.
So they may not tactically, they may not want this president to immediately face the accountability question through the impeachment, because they'd rather have the vice president face it first before the president, right? So, and then it goes, if they support totally the president at this point, it totally goes against their political narrative. So it's a very tricky situation on the part of the liberal progressives. And on the part naman of the Makabayan bloc, syempre, they will file against both the president and the vice president because that is their political position, that is their ideology, and that's their role, di ba? As a left party, di ba?
Well, on to the topic that you really wanted to talk about, anti-political dynasty.
And mainit,
of course.
Yes.
What makes you think na this time around it's going to be passed or somehow? Kasi sabi nga nila, like the FOI bill, pinag-uusapan, okay, pero andun lang siya, never pumapasa. But this time around, do you feel that it's going to be passed and yung bill na maipapasa naman ay talagang tama and the ones that we are really looking at?
Yeah. Itong anti-political dynasty bill is part of the unfulfilled mandate of the 1987 Constitution. We just commemorated the 39th year of the promulgation of the 1987 Constitution. And this year, we are commemorating the 40th anniversary of the EDSA People Power Revolution. And yet, we have failed to consolidate and deepen our democracy. And part of the reason why is because we have not seen this anti-political dynasty law that was promised in our Constitution. Of course, political families have dominated our elections for the longest time. They have been a part of the national political landscape since the colonial period, since the post-war period, since the martial law period, and post-martial law, post-EDSA period. And the framers of the Constitution believed that it should be addressed. That's the reason why they placed that provision in the Constitution. That's very, very important. But they made the mistake of asking Congress, which is a house of dynasty, both the Senate and the House of Representatives are dominated by dynasty, to define what dynasty is. And now it's been 39 years, and law has not seen the light of day. Anong pagkakaiba ngayon? Given the confluence of event, nung sumabog itong skandalo ng flood control, na-connect ng taong bayan, teka, bakit ba talamak ang korupsyon dito? Ito ay dahil sa political monopoly. Walang accountability ang mga nasa gobyerno at yung mga nahalal dahil pami-pamilya sila. Imagine mo, ang congressman, ang governor, ang mayor, magkakamag-anak, pag naghahapunan sila at nanananghalian, pinag-uusapan nila ang budget. May conflict of interest. Walang accountability. Di ba? So, ngayon, mulat na ang tao, nagmamasid sila, at hati ang mga elite, hati ang political factions. No? So, katulad nga ng sabi ko, gusto ngayon ng administrasyon, ng incumbent, mabawi ang tiwala ng taong bayan sa kanila. At gusto rin ng Pangulong Marcos siguro na mag-iwan ng magandang legasiya para sa kanyang administrasyon. So, siyempre, para hindi siya maging lame duck, kailangan itulak niya ito. Ngayon, ang tanong, ang itutulak ba ng Kongreso, ang itutulak ba ng Malacanang ay totoong anti-dynasty o malabnaw lamang? Diyan ngayon papasok ang taong bayan, diyan papasok ang civil society, at diyan po pumapasok itong grupo na aming itinatag, yung Anti-Dynasty Network, na binubuo ng mga professionals, academics, mga kabataan, at ng mga miyembro din ng mga dynasty. At isa sa mga namumuno nito ay ang Pasig Mayor na si Vico Sotto.
Prof, listening of course to the discussions, no, sabi ng no less than the framer, si Christian Monzon, one of the framers of the Constitution, the real intent was coming off the Marcos era, the real intent was to ensure that something like that wouldn't happen again. But they left it up for definition. Ngayon, ang tanong dito, Prof, based on the intent of the framers of the Constitution versus the intent of the House, what is then the definition of a political dynasty? Sabi ni Attorney Monsod, ang political dynasty, technically, national and local, wala yan. But could you imagine having a senator, tas asawa mo na gusto magsilbi sa barangay level? Hindi pwede dahil senador yung asawa mo.
Yes, so Diego. Kasi ako, 25 years ko nang pinag-aaralan itong issue ng political dynasty. Topic to ng doctoral dissertation ko. So, ang ating definition basically, ano ba talaga ang dinastiya? No? Ang basic definition, ito ay concentration, consolidation, and perpetuation of power in a political family. No? Napaka-basic. Ngayon, throughout the years, kasi, ang original notion natin ng dynasty ay yung tinatawag na teen dynasty. No? Yung sunod-sunod, no? Yung generational by succession. Pero in recent times, no, nagkaroon ng tinatawag na fat dynasty, yung sabay-sabay, yung dambuhala, 5, 6. At ngayon, ang nauuso na yung obese, no, sobrang taba, as much as 32, even 40 members of the same family occupying different positions in government, no? So, yan ang problema ngayon. Madaming obese or fat dynasty na namamayagpag sa politika natin. Ngayon, paano natin aayusin to? No? Ang unang-unang tanong, yung who, sino ba sila? No? Yung relationship by consanguinity or affinity, no? By blood or by in-law. No? Yung up to the second degree ba? No? Or yung maximum demand na fourth degree. Yung second degree, ang first degree kasi yung magulang at anak, second degree kasama yung kapatid, no? Third degree yung tito, tita, tsaka mga pamangkin, pati mga in-laws, at yung fourth hanggang pinsan, no? So, ang karamihan ng mga batas ngayon na ini-introduce sa lower house at sa Senado ay hanggang second degree. So, even the members of the dynasties are open to passing up to the second degree. Pero kung gusto natin ayusin ito, ang maximum demand ng civil society ay hanggang fourth degree, no? So fourth degree of consanguinity. Tas ang second question natin ay timing, no? Ito ba yung successive, yung sunod-sunod lang, or yung sabay-sabay, yung both, no? Yung teen and fat dynasty. Tapos what, no? Yung national ba o local? Kasi meron na naman bagong classification ng dynasty, yung tinatawag na tall dynasty. Meron ka na sa national, meron ka pa sa local, no? So, Kailangan i-address din yan. Pero yung fourth ang pinaka-importante, yung where, no? Kasi pwede nating tignan yung relationship by blood, no, second degree, yung or affinity up to the fourth degree. Pero ang lahat ng kapangyarihan ay nagko-concentrate do sa tinatawag nating cross-constituency or cross-jurisdiction. Halimbawa, yung governor nga, kamag-anak si mayor, kamag-anak si congressman, di ba? Nakokontrol nila yung area, di ba? Or minsan, dalawang distrito, isang probinsya, or minsan national, local. Ang kailangan nating higpitan, itong loophole sa cross-constituency at cross-jurisdiction. And lastly, pati party list pinasok na ng mga dynasty.
Oo,
no?
that's true.
So, originally, dapat ng party list para sa mga marginalized and underrepresented, pero ngayon ay namamayagpag ang mga dynasty dito. Dapat bawal din sila sa party list.
Parang nagiging stepping stone daw yung party list ang nangyari, no? In essence. Pero
Yes.
paano po ito? Kasi there are few concerns in pushing for this bill. Sabi nila baka daw maapektuhan yung fundamental rights ng Pilipino. What are your thoughts on that po?
Okay, kasi hindi rin naman absolute ang karapatan natin, no? Siyempre, 'di ba? Yung ganito kasi yan, 'di ba? Halimbawa sa economics, 'di ba? Pag may monopolya, 'di ba? Pag may oligopoly sa langis, sa bigas, sa kamatis, sa bawang, 'di ba? Dehado yung consumers, 'di ba? Dahil wala tayong choice at wala tayong control sa presyo ng bilihin, no? Kaya nagkakaroon ng mga regulation, yung tinatawag na antitrust, anti-monopoly laws, 'di ba? Ganon din sa politika. Pag ang namamayagpag ay iilan pamilya lamang, no? Meron tayong failure of the political market at kailangan ayusin to ng regulation. At itong anti-political dynasty law ay isang form ng pag-regulate. Actually, ang problema natin hindi sa demand ng botante, kundi sa supply ng politiko. Walang supply ng bagong dugo sa politika natin.
No other choice,
diba?
kumbaga.
Sila na lang,
Yeah.
di ba? And according to studies, 70 to 80% of national and elected officials in this country are dominated by political dynasties.
Right.
Kung gano'n ang sitwasyon natin, matatawag pa ba natin demokrasya ito? Di ba hindi na? So kailangan nga natin itong batas nito para ayusin ang demokrasya natin.
Pero sa tingin niyo po, based on the deliberation, I'm sure mahaba-habang discussion pa ito, pero ano yung most likely would, kumbaga sabi nga nila, really defined anti-political dynasty based on the laws that are passed or that are being crafted right now.
Okay.
Yung anti-political dynasty nila, Attorney Nerico Menares o yung kila Sandro Marcos, ano yung mas okay at ano yung mas more likely makakapasa based on the dynamics sa Congress at sa Senate? Dahil parehas yung may mga, they belong to political dynasties, most of them.
Ang importante at pagkakaiba nito in the compared to the past, no? Halimbawa, ang pinaka unang batas na inintroduce para dito ay nung immediately after the passage of the promulgation of the Constitution, no, nung 1987, no, si Senator Teofisto Ginggona, no. And then later on, hindi pumasa yun, no? Later on, noong panahon ni President Noynoy Aquino, dahil pangako niya ng kung walang korap, walang mahirap, pinangako niya ito, no? At ito ay umabot hanggang plenary, no? Noong 2013, tapos noong 2016, dahil pinangako ni President Noynoy na ipapasa ito, umabot to hanggang third reading, no? Pero naubusan sila ng panahon sa Senado at hindi ito natalakay. Noong panahon ni President Duterte, nakadikit ang usapin na ito doon sa charter change initiative ni President Duterte. Pero ngayon, ang pagkakaiba ay dahil nga dito sa flood control scandal, kailangan ngayon ng administrasyon to win some political points, no, to help support its remaining years in office, no, to legitimize and to regain, no, the trust of the people. Kaya nga sinabi niya, isa sa Dalawa actually sa priority bills niya for this Congress is una, itong anti-political dynasty,
Right.
at second, ang pagreforma sa party list system natin. No? So, dahil ngayon may utos galing sa Malacanang na seryosohin to, pati ngayon ang Kongreso na dati ay hindi pinakikinggan itong batas na ito ay bukas, no? And I was there last week when the House had its first hearing on the anti-political dynasty law, and you can feel that they're open to hearing and they're open to negotiating a compromise, no? The same in the Senate yesterday. So, ngayon, mas bukas itong mga politiko, ang mga babatas at ang mga dynasties na magtulak ng workable, possible, and practical na anti-dynasty law.
Yun talaga ang, at the end, kaninong version kaya yung papasa? Kasi baka mamaya optics lang di ba? Pero before we let you go, very quick lang po, we would like to ask you also yung inyo pong opinion doon sa nangyari sa Senate, yung coup rumors, di ba? Yung Senate coup. Pero hindi naman natuloy, and in fact, baka may plano pa ng term sharing. What are your thoughts on that po?
Yes, of course. As I mentioned earlier, the stakes are getting higher, during the first quarter of this year, because this first quarter, given the different national and local issues and even geopolitical issues facing the country, the control of the Senate is very important in order to navigate the trajectory towards the 2028 election. No? So, very important kasi yung control ng Senate dahil nga sa impeachment. No?
Right.
Kung matutuloy ang impeachment against the Vice President, importante yan. Tapos, syempre, alam naman natin na umiinit din ang usapin geopolitical nitong brouhaha with China, no? And yung pagtanggal kay Senator Amy Marcos as chair of the Foreign Relations Committee ng Senado, which is an important platform for whatever propaganda they want to peddle to the public as regards China, no? So yun ang very important trigger, no? And of course yung sa flood control, dahil nga nabanggit doon sa report ng Blue Ribbon Committee na makakasuhan ang 3 kabaro nilang senador. Syempre, barka-barkada rin yan, sama-samahan. So siguro baka, huwag nyo namang apihin yan, kasama natin yan. So may ganong klaseng logic din doon. No? Pero in the end, nangibabaw din naman yung reason at ang kanilang concern for a higher purpose sa national issues at sa bansa natin.
Alright, as always, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras and
Thank
of course
you.
for your
Thank you.
insights. Hopeful,
Thank you.
yeah, we hope to see you again, political scientist
Yes.
Julio Tehanqui of De La Salle University. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Let's now check the situation over at the Senate with our mobile journal, Merimon Reyes. Hi, Merimon. Ano nang update dyan? Kamusta ang
Attempted coup.
attempted coup?
Nako, Angela, ang hello ngayon, tahimik pa dito sa Senado, especially wala kasing plenary session tuwing Thursday and then Friday, walang Senate office, pwera na lang kung meron committee hearings na scheduled. Pero kahapon, matagal kasing nasuspend yung plenary session after magkaroon ng photo opportunity itong mga senador sa Philippine Sports Commission, sa mga atleta. And isa sa binabadya kasi during this time, either after ng session, yung suspended na session, is isasalang yung Senate Resolution number 256. Ito yung kinokondena na yung pambabatikos ng Chinese Embassy sa mga opisyal ng ating gobyerno or yung naturang kuro-kuro na may nilulutong kudeta na nais palitan yung liderato ni Senate President Tito Soto. Pero nung pagbalik na ng mga senador, ang napansin natin kahapon, wala yung minority, yung majority lang ang nasa session floor at ang tumayo doon sa rostrum, ito yung para podium kung saan usually yung presiding officer or yung Senate President ang tumatayo, si Senator Loren Legarda ang tumayo, siya yung nagbalik ng session at nag-close din, nag-adjourn na nung session. And jokingly, si Majority Floor Leader tinawag tinawag siya na Madam President. Pero nung pagkatapos nito, sinubukan natin makapanayam, makausap yung mga senador dito. Sabi ni na SP Soto na pagkatuwaan lang daw yun. Sabi ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan na stable pa rin naman daw ang majority. Parang medyo jokes lang yung nangyari. Pero pwede naman daw magkaroon ng presiding na officer tulad ni Senator Loren Legarda na nangyari kahapon.
Mary, that's what I wanted to clear up, no? Kasi ganun din ang sinasabi ng ibang senador na it was just having fun. Ngayon, ang usap-usapan ba dyan sa Senado, Mary Mon, was this also meant to send a message to the minority? Because ang unang chismis was Senator Amy and Senator Loren na dinadangle to try to get them on their side. So, ngayon, they're showing na buo ang majority, tapos pina-preside pa si Senator Loren.
Medyo tikom din, limited lang din yung mga sagot sa atin ng minority kasi ang nakausap natin dito panandalian si Senator Pia Cayetano na para sasabi niya maganda raw alamin kung sino ba yung nagsisimula talaga noong naturang kudeta pero wala siyang name drop eh. Wala namang sinabi directly if it's meant to answer yung mga sinasabing pumapalipot na chismis na merong kudeta. Pero ang sabi kasi dito ni SP Soto, yung majority bloc ang nagde-decide pa rin kung sino talaga yung, kung magkakaroon ng change in leadership. And pero nasabi rin kasi ni SP Soto na nung nagkausap sila ni Senator Loren, nakwento ng senadora na inoffer nga raw sa kanya to. Though yung ibang details hindi na binigay masyado. Pero during that time, hindi interesado yung senadora. Pero kahapon, nung pagkatapos mag-preside ni Senator Loren, sinubukan natin siya kausapin. Ang sabi niya, nag-preside lang daw siya. Then nung sinubukan natin tanungin kung eto na ba, nagpapatunay na ba to na siya na yung tinutulak talaga para maging SP. Ang sabi niya, thank you. Gumano lang siya. So umalis din yung senadora. Pero pinahapyawan ni na Senator J.V. Ejercito and ni SP Soto yung sinasabing power sharing na before the 20th Congress ends, parang may plano na iupo bilang SP itong si Senator Loren Legarda.
So that's in approaching 2028, Mary Mon. So kumbaga yung tail end ng Congress na yan, tsaka lang ipapasok si Senator Loren. Is that what's being talked about?
Yun yung panang napahapyawan ni Senator JV na yun yung titignan nila. Pero ang sabi kasi nung una, nung nagkaroon kasi ng nung pause muna yung session, nagkaroon kasi ng post si Senator Kiko Pangilinan ang nakalagay doon, power sharing. So yun yung natanong natin na nasabi na pagkatuwaan lang daw yun, okay naman daw, stable naman. Nag-post pa nga sila ng photo op na okay, staying strong ang Senate majority. Pero itong power sharing, yung pinaka-inaabangan natin kasi nga ang nasabi, either maghahati doon sa final term itong si SP Soto and then pass it on to Senator Loren Legarda. Meron din namang sinasabi na before the 20th Congress ends, plano talaga nilang iupo si Senator Loren. So that would still depend lagi sa taking ng votes at yung pagta-take ng oath sa plenary session.
Pero yun, so ibig sabihin, i-confirm lang natin na hindi pa talaga confirm yung sinasabi nilang term sharing between Senator Tito Soto and of course Senator Loren Legarda. Pero can you educate us somehow, Mary Mon, dun sa mga rules dyan sa Senate? Is this something na strategy ginawa ni Senator Tito Soto para somehow hindi na talaga magawa in the future na mapalitan siya as the Senate President because there's a promise already na merong susunod after him? Is that even,
Angela,
kumaga parang, is it even allowed in the Senate kung rules ang pagbabasihan?
Angela, pagdating kasi sa ganyan, for example, netong pagsisimula ng 20th Congress, from Senate President Jesus Cordero, nagkaroon ng kudeta, nagkaroon ng balasahan, and dahil din dyan doon sa yung kabuuan din ng majority bloc, kung may noong gustong maglipatan or gusto talaga nilang magkaroon ng changes, ang magbibilang pa rin talaga dyan yung boto dito. So kakailanganin yung majority ng boto para magkaroon ng change of leadership. Dito, ang sabi naman kasi ni SP Soto, still he serves at the pleasure of his colleagues. So, maging minority leader man daw siya, maging majority leader man daw siya, or ordinary senator or Senate President, kaya niya naman daw, wala daw sa kanya problema na mag-function. Kaya sinasabi niya dito, still yung majority pa rin daw ang magde-decide talaga kung magkakaroon ng change of leadership. So, wala siyang sinabi if it's politics in and out. Basta sinabi niya kung anong mangyari, tuloy-tuloy pa rin naman daw ang trabaho niya.
Alright, sige. Maraming salamat. That was our mobile journal, Mary Mon Reyes. Because hindi naman na yan bago. Kumbaga, before, di ba sa Congress, nagkaroon din ng term sharing. Before, if you can remember, between Congressman at that time, Alan Peter Cayetano and Lord Alan Velasco.
Basta
Alala mo yun?
Ang basic principle lang naman ng ganyan is the majority will decide. So if there's term sharing and agreed upon with the majority, and they will have to put it into a vote. That means lang, sinusolidify ng majority ang hold nila together that pagdating ng March of this period, we will vote kunyari, Senator Loren. So, yun lang ang
very
basic principle
symbolic lang, if ever, kung si Senator Loren Legarda, because sabi nga nila, first ever female Senate President in the history of
siya ang
our
napusuan even before Senator Cheese was put in. If you remember, yung kay PBBM, the first SP na being talked about was Senator Loren. Di ba? A woman, sabi niya, a veteran lawmaker, broadcaster. So, right, the Philippine Statistics Authority reported that inflation accelerated to 2% this January from 1.8% in December of last year. Now, for the details, we have mobile journalist Amy Atienza. Ayun, Amy, speaking of inflation, no, ano specifically sa inflation basket ang nag-contribute sa numbers na yan?
Good morning, Angela Diego. Dito naman sa Philippine Statistics Authority nga na i-anunsyo na 2% ang inflation rate para sa January 2026. So technically, kung i-compare natin ito dun sa naging inflation rate noong December 2025, mas mataas ito ng 0.2% dahil 1.8% yung inflation rate noong December 2025. So dalawa yung nakikita natin dito na biggest factors talaga or biggest commodity na nag-contribute nga dito sa uptrend ng inflation sa ating bansa. So una dyan is yung sa housing, kung saan nga malaki daw yung weight nung pag-lease, no, yung housing rentals, lalong-lalo na kapag January dahil dyan daw usually nag-iiba yung prices, lalo na pag rumerenta. And this also affects yung bills, so sa water, sa electricity, pati dun sa gas. So yun, mataas yung naging inflation, yung naging contribution nito sa pagtaas din ng inflation rate for January 2026. Bukod pa dyan, malaking factor din yung sa restaurant and accommodation services. Tinutukoy nito yung consumption sa labas ng bahay. So yung mga restaurants like fast food chains din, kasama dyan, maging yung cafeterias and yung mga karinderya, kasama dyan sa naging uptrend ng inflation. Nakita kasi sa consumer behavior na at around 10% yung naging contribution. Ibig sabihin niyan, mas madami yung bumibili ng food outside, ng mga packed lunch or kaya ng mga fast food na pagkain compared dun sa mga nagluluto at kumakain inside their homes. So yan yung nakitang trend for this January 2026. Kaya nakita rin dun sa mga datos ngayong buwan sa January 2026 na data na mas bumababa yung presyo ng pagkain, kabilang mga dyan, yung sa mga vegetables na usually sila talaga yung nagiging main contributor sa pagtaas din ng inflation rate.
Alright, maraming salamat to our mobile journal, Amy Atienza, reporting live from Quezon City. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has imposed a second 60-day suspension on Cavite 4th District Representative Kiko Barzaga. The plenary voted 238 in favor of the suspension, 10 against, and 9 abstained. The decision came after the Ethics Committee reviewed Barzaga's conduct and social media posts. During the suspension, Barzaga said he plans to keep a low profile and spend time with his pets.
I wouldn't have done it if I would have regretted it. Please, sanay na tayo dyan. We'll just keep doing we'll just keep doing what's best for the people.
In weather, Tropical Storm Bashang accelerates while moving closer towards eastern Mindanao. Its center was last spotted some 385 kilometers east of Hinatuan, Surigao del Sur. Bashang will make its initial landfall over Surigao del Sur tonight and tomorrow morning. It will then emerge over Bohol Sea and may pass close or make another landfall over Siquijor and the southern portion of Negros Oriental. Tropical cyclone wind signal number 2 is up over several areas in Mindanao. While these areas now flash on your screens are under tropical cyclone wind signal number 1.
Okay, balikan ko lang yung dun sa suspension ni Congressman Kiko
Barzaga.
Barzaga. At the end of the day, ang pinaka nakaapektuhan dito yung constituents niya. No? So ano ba yung talagang plano ng Congress dito kay Kiko Barzaga? Will they be continuing itong mga suspension na to? This is the second suspension, di ba? Dito sa kanilang congressman na to because yun nga, yung constituents niya, they need a functioning congressman in their district.
May precedence naman yan. So, kung mawala yan, it's either they have a special election
Yun
or
nga,
appointee or second.
They have to make it a point na, they have to make up their mind. Ano ba talagang plano nila?
Well,
Bakit, diba?
they have to do it, if they're going to expel him, they have to do it as soon as possible because it's already the tail end of this administration.
Now, let's get back to our discussion about the weather. For more weather updates, we have Pag-asa Weather Specialist Obet Badrina. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Sir Obet. Saan po areas pinaka makakaapekto ang bagyong Basyang?
Magandang umaga po, gayon din po sa lahat ng mga tagapakinig natin. So base po sa ating latest track nga as of 8 a.m. update po natin, ito pong bagyong Basyang ay posible pong maglandfall dito sa may bahagi ng Surigao del Sur. Kaya po sa tanong po ninyo kung ano yung mga lugar na pinakamaapektuhan ng bagyo, ito po yung mga lugar kung lalo na po kung saan nakataas ang Tropical Cyclone Wind Signal number 2, itong area ng Caraga at Northern Mindanao. At ito po ay lalapit sa bahagi ng Kabisayaan. So asahan din po ng mga kababayan natin sa Visayas, lalong-lalo na po sa may southern part ng Visayas. So ito po yung areas, partikular na sa may Negros Oriental, southern part ng Cebu, ng Bohol, at ganyan sa may Panay Island. Asahan din po itong magiging maulang panahon, kasama rin po yan yung Siquijor at Camiguin area. So asahan po ng mga kababayan natin yung mga potensyal ng malalakas na mga pagulan na maaaring magdulot ng mga pagbaha at pagguho ng lupa sa mga susunod po na araw. Lalong-lalo na po, starting tonight hanggang sa weekend, kung kailan natin inaasahan nga na dadaan po yung bagyo. Base pa rin sa track po natin, maapektuhan po itong area hanggang northern part ng Palawan. Dadaan po rin yung sentro ng bagyo sa bahaging ito ng ating bansa.
May epekto po ba yung amihan dito sa bagyo?
Posible pong lumakas kasi yung amihan the coming days, kaya po nakikita nga po natin na posibleng hindi na po tataas pa yung intensity, sa ngayon yung highest intensity na maaari pong ma-achieve ng bagyo natin ay hanggang signal number 2 lamang, dahil po possible po na yung amihan ay yung dala nitong malamig at yung hangin ang maaring lalo pang magpahina sa bagyo, lalo na bandang araw ho ng linggo.
So yung mga gusto mag-weekend getaway, north to south Luzon, safe tayo?
Dito po sa may Northern Luzon, yes po, masasabi po natin na wala naman pong direktang maging epekto yung bagyo at kung magkakaroon man ng mga pag-ulan, mga light rains po yung inaasahan natin.
Okay.
Alright, just to confirm lang po, kailan po lalabas ang Philippine Area of Responsibility, ang bagyong Basyang? And of course, are we also still monitoring other weather systems?
Posible pong hindi na lumabas po ng Philippine Area of Responsibility ang bagyong Basyang base kasi sa ating latest track, mas nakikita po natin yung potential na ito ay maging isang low pressure area na lamang pagdating ng araw ng linggo.
Okay, para malusaw na lang or humina na lang.
Opo, dahil nga po ito sa posibleng maging epekto ng amihan sa mga susunod na araw.
Alright, thank you for the updates, Pag-asa Weather Specialist Obet Badrina. Don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
At least 45 people have been confirmed dead in the sinking of Rora vessel MV Trisha Kirsten 3 off the waters of Balok-Balok Island in Basilan. 2 more bodies were recovered on the 10th day of search and rescue operations after Philippine Coast Guard divers located the wreckage of the vessel beneath the sea. Authorities say some remains may still be inside the ship, including its captain who remains missing. Families of missing crew members are still holding on to hope, while recovered bodies are set to be brought to Zamboanga City for identification and proper disposition.
Napakalalim nung incident area. Hindi kaya nung ating mga normal na divers. And at the same time, malalaki yung swell doon, malalaki yung alon, and napakalakas nung yung current ng tubig. So ito yung mga for the past few days ng diving operation, ito yung mga challenges ng ating mga divers.
A jeepney driver from Cavite goes beyond transporting passengers. He rescues abandoned dogs and cats he finds along his daily routes. Mobile journalist Ivan Tarinque has the report.
Kung dati, jeepney driver sweet lover ang bansag sa mga tsuper. Ngayon, isang jeepney driver sa Cavite ang may ibang peg. Jeepney driver, pet lover. Hanggang sa pasada, kasama ng jeepney driver na si Michael ang alagang asong si Samantha. Tuwang-tuwa tuloy ang mga nakasubaybay sa kanila online. Pero may mas malalim na kwento sa likod ng viral nilang mga biyahe. Isa lang kasi si Samantha sa mahigit 100 ng aso at pusa na nirescue ni Michael habang namamasada. Talaga raw hinihintuan at pinupulot niya ang mga nakikitang kawawang hayop. Aspin man o may breed, walang pinipiling tulungan si Michael.
Para bang nakakakonsensya na ako mismo nakakita, wala akong ginawa. Yun po ang hirap sa akin ngayon kasi yun ang hirap sa akin bilang jeepney driver. Kasi ako mismo nakakakita.
Noong una, dahon ng bayabas lang kanyang ginagamit sa paggamot sugat ng mga nasasagip na hayop. Pero habang dumadami ang mga rescue, hindi na ito kinaya. Ngayon, libo-libong piso kada buwan ang kanyang iniintindi para sa gamot at pagkain ng mga alaga. Mabuti na lang daw, may mga pribadong individual na nagbigay ng tulong para sa kanyang mga rescue.
Later on, patuloy pa rin ako nagre-rescue hanggang sa nakakuha na nga ako ng may sakit. Hinihingi ko na talaga ng tulong sa kanila dahil hindi na kaya ito ng mga herbal na tulad ng mga dahon ng bayabas.
Sa kabila ng lahat ng ito, marami na rin sa kanyang mga nasagip na hayop ang nakahanap na ng bagong tahanan. Ayon kay Michael, masinsina ng kanyang pag-screen sa mga nagnanais mag-adopt dahil mahalaga sa kanya na mapunta ang mga alaga sa tunay na pet lovers. Pero may isang realidad na masakit para sa kanya. Ang mga hayop na may kapansanan, madalas ay walang gustong mag-adopt.
Hanggat kaya ko, dapat po nating mahalin hanggang sa huling sandali ng kanilang buhay. May buhay din sila, nasasaktan din sila, nakakaramdam din sila ng gutom, mahal din sila ng Panginoon, kaya nga sila nilikha ng Panginoon.
Sa gitna ng mainit na kalsada at mahabang biyahe, hindi lang pasahero ang kanyang sakay, kundi pati pag-asa para sa mga hayop na matagal nang naiwan sa gilid ng daan. Mga kapatid, Mobile Journal Ivan Tarinque po hatid ang muka ng balita.
In sports, Filipina tennis star Alex Ayala is through to the quarterfinals of the Abu Dhabi Open after a thrilling comeback win over Alexandra Sasnovich of Belarus. Ayala rallied from a set down to defeat Sasnovich in a 3-hour battle played before a predominantly Filipino crowd in Abu Dhabi. The 20-year-old fought back from a deficit in the deciding set and held her nerve in a tense tiebreak to seal the victory. Ayala now advances to the quarterfinals and is also set to compete in the doubles quarterfinals. The Philippine Kiteboarding Tour returned for season 11, kicking off in Calatagan, Batangas with high-energy action from local and international riders. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho reports.
The Philippine Kiteboarding Tour is officially back and it's off to a high-energy start. Season 11 of the Philippine Kiteboarding Tour kicked off in Calatagan, Batangas, turning its windy coastline into a showcase of speed, skill, and international competition. From January 24 to 26, top local riders went head-to-head with elite kiteboarders from abroad in the first of 3 major stops this season. Fans were treated to thrilling action across multiple disciplines: freestyle, hang time, twin-tip racing, and foil racing. In freestyle, international standouts took center stage, with Thailand's Napichitio Pudla ruling the men's division, while Estonian and European champion Trina Trey claimed the women's title in her return to Philippine waters. But beyond the podium finishes, national pride was front and center. The opening leg rode on the momentum of Filipino kiteboarder Warner Hanoya, fresh from winning a bronze medal in foil racing at last year's SEA Games in Thailand, proof that Filipino riders can now compete in Olympic-class events. According to Philippine Kiteboarding Association President Jay Ortiz, the tour is about building a long-term future for the sport, developing athletes across all ages, while positioning the Philippines as a world-class kiteboarding destination. After Calatagan, the race for Season 11 crown continues in Cagbalete Island this February, before a grand finale in Boracay this March. Kapatid Denise Valdesancho, we are One News.
Matry ko nga yung kiteboarding ba?
Sige, go. Try mo.
Hindi kasi water sports usually daw are good for people with bad knees and high.
Kasi yung motion sa ilalim ng
Less
ng water.
impact kasi. Alam naman natin, 50 years old na ako, punong-puno ako ng gas.
50 ka na ba?
Oh my gosh! Ito na naman tayo. Kala sa edad ko, nababawasan ng stress saka ng high blood eh.
Ano?
Diba? Dinadagdagan mo eh. Oo. Uy, thank you pala sa lahat ng viewers natin. Hindi pa tayo tapos. We have one more day. It's Friday tomorrow. Thank you for joining us to all these issues. Tuloy-tuloy lang ang laban. Huwag ma-stress tayo lahat. Relax, take it easy, and watch News and Views every day. Alright, that wraps...
Go!
Corny. That wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
I'm Angelo Castro III. Kapatid, we are on news.
All sides, all the time.